Hey there, it's Angela, and I'm so glad you found your way here to architecting. Creative careers can be stressful and it's hard to be vulnerable, but this is your landing pad for raw honesty. I'll help you get clarity, reconnect with your passion, and have the career of your dreams. If you're ready to make a difference, have an impact, and say bye bye to burnout, stick with me and let's get architecting. Hey Bright Lights, it's Angela. Welcome back to Architecting. This is the place where we tackle issues related to overwhelm, stress, and burnout. Things that are sapping you from being your creative best self, claiming success on your terms, and living a life that feels rich and fulfilling, not one that takes your energy, but makes energy for you. And today, I'm really excited to tackle the topic of creative burnout. I have to jump in and tell you about my latest creative pursuit, which you can find exclusively on my Architecting YouTube channel. It's called Space Doctor, and it is a weekly prompt for you using a card deck that I created that I had so much fun making, based on my research in salutogenesis, or design for well-being. So the very first episode is up there, and I'd love for you to see it and tell me exactly what you think. But this is an example of a creative project that I've worked on a little bit at a time over the last few months that has been so much fun. And I hope that you enjoy learning about this topic and how these cards can be used as much as I loved making them, and as much as I'm gonna look forward to sharing the prompts every week with all of you. I've done episodes on burnout and stress in the past, looking at it more globally as an issue. Creative burnout, however, is a little bit more of a niche issue that is particularly targeting people who work in the creative professions, and specifically related to your generative ability, because at its root, creativity is about making something out of nothing. Giving birth. It is inception. It is the spark. So it takes a lot of energy to create. We cannot create when we are running on fumes. When we work in a stressful environment, however, the stress response is designed to help us physically escape danger, not cope with the modern stressors that you're actually facing. And therefore, every single thing that's happening in your body at that moment is making it more difficult for you to create, because the stress response is rooted in fear. Fear is about lack-based thinking. It is about protecting yourself. It is not about seeing adjacent possibilities, giving generously, and generating, which is what creativity is. So what do we do about this? Very specifically, creative burnout is defined as a state of mental and emotional exhaustion coming from prolonged periods of intense creative work or pressure. We cannot be in this generative mode all the time. So you might have been highly productive and need to rest and regenerate, versus go all the time. You are not a machine. Creativity is not an assembly line. One of my all-time favorite quotes about creativity is, if you know it will work, it isn't creative. Meaning, by its very nature, creativity requires a great deal of energy and a great deal of resilience. It requires holding a big vision even though you may be making a lot of pivots as you adjust to what it takes to bring that vision to life. So, as you might imagine, creative burnout is most experienced by people like architects, artists, writers, designers, but really anybody who is doing creative work can experience it. So, for example, you might be an accountant, but you have to do marketing. And so you have to use your creative muscle. You may not do this every day or for long periods of time, but it still takes a lot for you to do that. So then the next time you have to do some other kind of marketing work, you might just feel that you don't have it in you, and you notice that you are just putting it in the too hard basket, procrastinating, thinking you'll get to it later, except later never really comes. That's how you know that you are there. When it just feels like there is nothing left in the tank, you have no ideas, you cannot focus. You'll notice feeling apathy, even about things that you know you love to do. Fatigue, frustration because you can't seem to get the juices flowing and you don't know why. Feel like maybe you aren't inspired anymore, or the passion that you have isn't really there. Be on the lookout for those symptoms because they can, over time, build up and have a really detrimental effect on your physical health, your mental health, and even your career choices. The best thing that you can do if you are noticing this feeling of creative burnout is to take a break. Pushing yourself is not going to get you over the hump. It is not going to suddenly get the work done. It's going to actually make the burnout worse. The best thing you can do is stop. Even if it feels counterintuitive, even if you're worried about hitting a deadline, trust me on this. This really works. Go do something else. I'm always touting Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith's 7 forms of rest. So it isn't just go take a nap. Do some physical movement. Go to a museum or watch a movie, something that inspires you. Spend quality time with friends and loved ones. Do some yoga or some breathing exercises. Reflect and reconnect. Just do what it takes to rest, to get away from the problem at hand and do things that nurture your creativity, that give your mind a break, that give you pleasure. There is leading edge research that has been published related to neurology. We know the stress chemicals are cortisol and adrenaline, and I've talked at length on many episodes about how they set off a chain reaction that's detrimental unless we can burn off that energy. But they're opposite of stress hormones. Things like dopamine, but especially oxytocin, have an interesting relationship. It turns out that cortisol and oxytocin have an inverse balance, meaning that if one is higher, the other has to be lower. Now, it's easy to say, okay, yeah, I get it. Therefore, if I'm more stressed out, I'm enjoying life less. I have less oxytocin available. But there are things you can do consciously to raise your level of oxytocin. And the minute you do that, by default, your levels of cortisol are going down. And this is a huge breakthrough, I think, in stress management, but in burnout management, because when we are feeling that oxytocin, that is the hormone of creation. It is the hormone that is elevated when women are pregnant. It is the hormone that bonds parents to their children. It is the hormone of love. And love is the opposite of fear. Love is the creative emotion, the generative emotion, while fear is the lack-based one. And the best part is that you can very, very consciously put routines into your day that will elevate your oxytocin levels. Let's start with the chronology of a day. Your alarm goes off. Do not look at your phone. Do not think about how you're going to take down the tasks of the day. Do not think about what you have to do to get your kids out of bed and moving. None of that. Instead, stretch and just luxuriate in the feeling of moving your body. Think about how comfortable your bed is or how much you like your pillow. Immediately just tune into physical sensations that are pleasurable, that make you happy, and feel gratitude that you get to wake up in this comfortable bed, that you got sleep last night. Stay very positive. Then you can move on to some affirmations. Now, you haven't gotten out of bed yet, and this is important. You are still in those early waking moments where your mind has reset while you've been asleep. And before it gets filled with all of the stuff that's going to stress you out, we're going to load it up with the oxytocin hormone instead. This is the time to move into affirmations. One that I love and say every day is, I'm directing my day to flow with grace and ease. And I say that over and over again. Think about affirmations that you're going to find credible. So saying things like, today I am going to get everything on my to-do list done, is probably not a good affirmation because you can't control that and then you're going to feel bad about yourself. You don't believe that's going to happen, so there's no point in having an affirmation like that. You're going to say your affirmations. Now you're going to get up. Now, maybe you have other people that you are responsible for and you have to get them in motion. But what I like to do is get up a little before everyone else, so about 15 minutes early. And I wake them up knowing that they're just going to lay in bed. I put my coffee on and then I do a 10-minute guided meditation. I pick a topic that is something I want to focus on. Is it love? Is it gratitude? Is it attracting miracles? Is it being clear-headed and calm today? You pick what works for you, and there are many great meditations that you can find online. I include meditations in my Stressless Success course, so there's lots of sources for meditations, but take that time. Really let that meditation continue to perpetuate feelings of love and calm and joy and gratitude. Then you can take some time to journal, even if it is just 5 minutes. And your journal really at this point in the day should be positive, should feel aspirational. What feels good in your life right now and how you are going to amplify that through the day, or commitments you're going to make to your well-being. Things that are micro habits, things that are easy, things that you can feel pretty confident you're going to get to. Just doing these things already set you up before you got into your day, before your brain started moving 10,000 miles an hour, to feel a huge rush of oxytocin. So you have front-loaded your day to reset against a stress response. You've kind of stocked up, if you will, so that as stress may move in a little bit and start to deplete, there was a bigger reserve there. As you go about your day, deliberately look for things that can provide inspiration. So you might want to listen to a podcast that's inspirational. You might want to listen to music that makes you feel happy and joyful and positive. You might want to spend time reading a few chapters of a book that you love, or some poetry, or looking at some art, even if you make it a screensaver on your computer. Put those things that give you inspiration where they are easily accessible to you throughout the day. Challenge yourself every day to look at any problem, no matter how serious or heavy it feels, from a point of view of play. So instead of being really in the situation and feeling all of the negative emotions that that situation might be fostering, pull back. Look at it from a different point of view. A question I like to ask a lot of time in this situation is, so what? And it's so irreverent, and it really kind of goes and breaks that negative thought cycle, because you're like, yeah, so what? What is the point of this? A lot of times you can see that the things you might have been consumed with are really the symptoms, not the problem. And you can get a much better focus on what the real issues are and take a much more high-level approach to strategizing about solving, instead of being in victim mode where it feels really stuck and you don't really know what else to do aside from vent about how frustrated you are. You've now switched over. You're thinking about, how can I? You've empowered yourself. You've been lighter about it. Think of it like a game. Think of it like how you can play, even if there is somebody you have to work with who is a real downer, or who you find an irritating person to deal with. What if instead of being totally into how they make you feel, you looked at them more like a character in a book or a movie? And yes, they may have certain negative attributes, but we know that going in. What game could we play knowing that that person is going to have certain kinds of responses to certain stimuli? How can we be strategists? How can we kind of mastermind a different way to interact with them? And it's more like a game then, instead of feeling like a confrontation. And again, I always say, meet resistance with curiosity, which takes time and effort. And it's like a muscle. The more you do it, the better you will get at it. But it makes a difference. Be more willing to say, what if? Maybe you are stuck and you don't know what to do. Think about ways that you could do it differently. What if a 5-year-old was presented with this problem? What would they think about it? Or what if we put two things that feel unrelated together, and we had to figure out how to make it work using those two things as our inspiration? Challenge yourself, even if it's ridiculous, because that will kickstart your creativity again. And you never know what crazy idea might have the germ of something that's really going to work and be a breakthrough innovation. And then the last thing to try to consciously do in your day is look for more opportunities to collaborate. Usually when we feel stuck, we feel embarrassed about it, we want to kind of take things offline, we want our cave time alone because we don't want anyone to see that we're stuck. That can actually often lead to you feeling more stuck. If you bounce ideas off of someone else, you're going to get different insights. You're going to get a fresh perspective. And sometimes you may find that you really get going and start really generating and building an idea from one person to the next, and as you react to what you're each saying. Don't be afraid to pull aside a trusted colleague and say, what do you think of this? or to delegate to somebody on your team and say, let's have a little bit of a charrette. Why don't you spend half an hour thinking about this, and let's get together and let's talk about what you come up with. Challenge several people on the team to do that. But collaborating is a great way to get out of your own head and to get more ideas percolating out there. You can even use some of that experimental play in scenarios where you get a few people from the team together and you give one of those as a prompt and let everyone work on that prompt. So all of these things, if you put them into practice in your day, doing the gratitude and appreciation from the beginning of the day to front load the oxytocin so that there's less cortisol available in your system, reflecting and reconnecting through journaling, through affirmations, putting things in place that inspire you, and having inspirational experiences throughout the day, that experimenting and play and collaborating will all help when you feel stuck, when you feel burned out, and they're just good practices to do every day. More than helping you to get out of burnout, I also want you to not get there in the first place. Make sure that you take care of yourself. Self-care is not selfish. In fact, the best way you can serve the people you love, your clients, your community, is to make your self-care your number one priority. So get enough sleep, eat well, exercise, take care of yourself. Make sure you have good boundaries so you don't get overextended and your time and attention is being put to the things that are your priority. That just builds up your resources and your resiliency, which is going to help you in the long run be more creative. So don't commit to a ridiculous deadline. Negotiate something that feels better for you. Don't say yes when you really mean no. No is a complete sentence. Check in with things that you've set as goals either for yourself or your team so you can course correct if something isn't going the way you thought it would. And embrace failure as a learning experience. Make sure that you are celebrating the wins. That is so important. And again, it's going to give you those hits of the positive anti-stress chemicals, the oxytocin, the dopamine. It's so important not to minimize even the little wins of the day. Make sure that you celebrate the wins for yourself and for your team. Look at how you can support yourself, whether it's in your home life with people to help with care of your home or your children. Put that network in place. Don't leave yourself alone trying to cope with everything. Ask for help and make sure you have systems in place so that you don't always have to scramble at crunch time, but that you've got support all the time. Look at how you can continue to learn and grow. In my book, Time Builder, I talk about how if you just spent 20% of your day pursuing a passion project, you would make progress. And it would be the part in your day that you could look forward to. It would be the energizing burst that got you through some of the compulsory parts of your day, like answering emails or sitting in a meeting that you're not thrilled about or dealing with a difficult person, because you would be getting that focused, dedicated time to doing something you truly love and getting to see progress made instead of either minimizing it and deciding it doesn't matter when you know it does and betraying yourself, or feeling that sense of frustration with yourself because you really care about this, but you never can find the time to do it. Focus on learning and growth, even if it is just 1 hour out of your day every day. Give yourself that time. Do not make it a negotiable part of your day. Build it in and commit to it. When you do all these things, I promise you, you will notice a huge difference. These are some really smart things to put in place. You will up-level your creativity in ways that right now you don't even think are possible. You will find that you get more done in less time that's of better quality, and it won't feel like it is such a strain and drain on your resources to make it happen. That's how I feel about my Saluted Genesis card deck and all of the research I've been doing for all the years that led up to it. It was a fun idea that just popped into my head because I love doing this work so much, and a true labor of love to create the illustrations on every single one of these cards, which is why I would super appreciate it if you would head on over to the Architecting channel and watch that first episode and tell me what you think and if it's helping you feel more creative in your approach to your own work. And just like that card deck, these kinds of passion projects are bigger than you. They show other people that it's possible for them to invest in their own creativity as well. As you work this way and you pull other people into the process with you, you are teaching them these good habits, which is uplifting our whole profession and making a difference in the quality of the work we're doing, which makes a difference to everyone that interfaces with that work. If you love this episode, please make sure to like, rate, and review it. It really does help the podcast be found by more people. And make sure you tell a friend. Remember that creativity and innovation and success are not about fear and lack. There is always more. The pie is infinite. So helping somebody else on their creative journey is only going to strengthen yours. It will never take away from your success or your progress. Thank you all for listening. I love you all so much, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. If you want even more content, head on over to architectingpodcast.com and subscribe to my newsletter and get some great free downloads while you're there. Be sure to follow me on social media. On Instagram at Architecting Podcast, Facebook and LinkedIn pages are Architecting, and the YouTube channel Architecting Podcast. Stay inspired.